Hi, I'm Glenn Rogers, and this is American Perspectives. In this video, we're going to talk about term limits. It seems like every few months someone floats the idea of term limits. And what they mean by that is congressmen and senators only get to serve for a certain number of years or a certain number of terms in office. Okay, and so the question is limiting the time a person can serve in the House of Representatives or in the United States Senate a good idea? Some people think it's a great idea, and other people are not so convinced. So we're going to talk about that today. But first, I want to take just a moment and ask you to help us out by subscribing to our channel. There's a little button down below that you can click and subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything, nobody will bother you. And then there's a little like button, a thumbs up thing. And doing those things helps YouTube know that people like the channel, they like our content, and more people will get to see the video, basically, is what it comes down to. So it'd be very helpful if you would subscribe to our channel. Okay, this idea of term limits, is it a good idea? The people who advocate term limits do so, I think, because they want politicians that they don't like out of office. You see, and they say things like, well, if we had term limits, Pelosi would have been gone a long time ago, or Biden would have been gone a long time ago. You can sort of see, from what they say, the names they use, where they're coming from. There are certain people that they wish were gone off of the political stage, and if there had been term limits so that a Congress person or a senator could only serve so many terms, then they'd serve that term and then they'd be gone, and then we wouldn't have to deal with them anymore. Well, here's the question for me. Is it a good idea to fundamentally change the way government works, the way the Founding Fathers set it up to work, just to get rid of a few people with whom we disagree? Okay? That's really what we're talking about here. Finding a way to get rid of some people that we disagree with. But here's the thing, and while I understand wanting to get rid of people that we disagree with, I mean, there are people out there right now that, man, I wish they weren't where they are. I wish they, were someplace else doing some other kind of work, okay? But the question is, how do we get rid of them? And if we utilize something like term limits, is that really going to be a good answer? Are there any positive results that could probably be anticipated or associated with term limits? Well, I think that depends entirely on your perspective, and maybe it's good, maybe it's not. So, for instance, number one, term limits would eliminate long tenures in office. In other words, you wouldn't have anybody that's been in Congress for 27 years or 30 years. You wouldn't have any senators who've been serving, for 25 or 30 or 34 years or whatever. Okay, now, is that good? That you wouldn't have that? Is it good that those people wouldn't be allowed to keep coming back, even if they're voted into office? They couldn't run anymore because they've already served the limit of terms that they can. Is that good? If you don't like that person and you want to see them gone, you'd say, yeah, it's a good thing, get them out of there. But what if it's one of the good people? What if it's one of the good people in Washington that's actually making a difference? Now, I know there would be some people out there who would say, well, there are no good people in Washington. None of them are doing any good. They're all, get them all out of there. That's not true. Okay, that's just not true. There are people in Washington, D.C. who are good people, honest people, hardworking people who have given their lives in service to this country. Okay, and we don't need to get rid of them. All right, so my answer to, term limits would eliminate long tenures. My answer to that is, that's not good in every case. In some cases, it would be good but in some cases it would be bad. It would be terrible. Number two, term limits would generate regular turnover in the Congress. Now, is that good? Some people, again, given their perspective, will say, yeah, get some fresh blood in there so we get some new people instead of the same old people who can't seem to get anything done. Well, okay, I get that. But let me ask you this. Is the lack of being able to get things done, is that because of the individuals in office? Or is that because of the way the system works, because of the way the system is designed? I think if you have a lot of turnover, if Congress, for instance, is a place that's got one of those revolving doors in it, every 2 terms, new people are coming in and old people are coming out, and you just have constant turnover, is that going to be good for our country in the long run? Well, I don't think so. I think constant turnover is not a good thing. I mentioned in one of the other videos, the one just before this, in fact, when I was a young man, I used to work at McDonald's, all right? And that was really a good job. I learned a ton of really good stuff about hard work and discipline and all that sort of stuff. It was a good job. But one of the realities of working at a place like that, and it's not just McDonald's, it'd be any of those kinds of places, is that you have a lot of turnover. People work for a few weeks or a few months, and then they quit and go someplace, and then there's somebody else. Whenever you have a lot of turnover, you're constantly having to train new people because they don't know the system. They don't know how it works. Well, that brings us to the third point. Term limits would require a lot more people running for office, and is that a good thing? Having a lot more people running for office constantly, people coming in. That's like, they're going in the revolving door when other people are coming out. There's something to say for continuity. There's something good about having people in place who know what they're doing, right? And so I'm not sure that, even though some people would say, well, in the case of this person, it would be good to get them out of there. Sure, there's always a bad apple in there somewhere. It would be better if you got that one out. But if in getting rid of that one, you get rid of 2 or 3 others that are not bad, but they're really good, then have you really done anything good? You see, I'm not sure that term limits is a good idea. In fact, I think there are some absolutely negative, very negative results that would be associated with term limits. So let me talk about a few of those. Number one, just as a new congressperson or a new senator learns how to be effective and get things done, they reach the limit of the times they can serve, how many terms they can serve, and they got to go. Now, some people wouldn't see that as a real problem, but I do, and we're going to talk about that here in a moment. One of the things you have to understand is the extreme complexity of our governmental system. It takes years to learn to use it well. And the Founding Fathers set it up like that on purpose. These are people who make laws in our country. And one of the things the Founding Fathers did not want is too many laws. You see, they wanted people to be free. Well, the more laws you have, the less freedom you have. And so if it's too easy to make laws, then it's basically too easy to limit people's freedom. And so they made a very complex system. Ideas have to go into committee and be discussed, and somebody's got to write up something, and then people have to look at it, and they have to scrutinize it, and they have to critique it, and then it has to be rewritten, and I mean, it takes a long time before that committee says, okay, this is good, and then it's got to go from there to someplace else, and then something else has to happen, and there's a lot of people talking, and I'd like you to help me get this passed. And he said, well, I can probably help you with that, but I got one I'm working on too, and I'd like for you to help me with that one. And There's give and take and back and forth and compromise and what are we going to get done and how long is it going to take, and first the House has to pass it and then the Senate has to get involved and they have to pass. It's a very complex process by design. And it takes years to learn how to use it and use it well, and to learn how to network and interact with people in a nice way where they can help you and you can help them and things can actually get done. Great deal of complexity. Takes years to learn it. You start limiting terms, just about the time somebody's starting to get it figured out, they're done. They got to leave. Somebody new has to come in, and the new person hasn't got a clue. They don't know what to do. So that brings us to the second point. With the higher turnover associated with term limits, then we're going to have fewer and fewer experienced people who know how to work the system and get things done. Well, that can't be good for the country. Have a bunch of new people in there who don't know what to do and how to do it. And if you think now Congress doesn't get much done, what's going to happen when it's constantly filled with new people who are just learning the system? How much are they going to be able to get done? Not much. Not much. And number three, then these inexperienced new people will be expected to do some of the most difficult jobs on the entire planet, one of them being managing America's security. You realize that while most of the people in the world like America, and that's why so many people want to immigrate here, they love America because all the freedoms and everything we enjoy, that there are some governments out there who don't like us. They consider us the enemy, okay? And we have security issues in this country that are extremely sensitive, extremely important, that require the attention of our elected officials. You know, the military just doesn't go do this stuff all by themselves. You know, the people in Washington, our elected officials, serve on committees and make decisions about how we will handle American security. You want some new, constantly new people who haven't had time to learn the system and learn what's going on, learn what the threats are and what the proper responses are and everything. You want them running security in America? I'm not sure that I do. And number four, this is associated with number three, these experienced new people would have to deal with highly experienced professional diplomats and politicians from other countries who don't like us. Countries like China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, and other hostile countries. And so they come to the table with years and years, decades of experience and knowing what to do. And we send in a bunch of freshmen, a bunch of newbies who haven't a clue how to deal with these people. And we think that's going to make things better for America in the world? I don't think so. I think term limits has some serious things associated with it. Number five, it may be that fewer and fewer of our nation's lawmakers have any legal training. You realize that most of the people in the House and most of the people in the Senate are lawyers? Okay? And of course, some people are going to say, yeah, and that's the problem. You got a bunch of... Yeah, no, it's not the problem. These are the people who make laws in our country. It's a good idea to have people with legal training making the laws of our country, okay? That's kind of common sense. Now, not everybody there is a lawyer. Most of them are, but not everybody. Some of them are doctors. Some of them are professors. Some of them are from different kinds of backgrounds, and they're highly educated and they have a lot of experience and they bring that to the table. But if we have too much turnover on a regular basis, we have to have more and more and more people running for office. And if we have to have more and more and more people running for office, then fewer of them are going to be highly educated, capable people who can do the job really well. And many of them will not have the legal training necessary to do the job really well. So I think here's what it comes down to. While it's the case that term limits would get rid of some of the bad apples that are in the basket, it would also get rid of some of the good ones, okay? It amounts to throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Now, I said that in class one day, and I had a bunch of students, give me those looks like, what are you talking about? Throw out the baby with the bath. What does that mean? Well, this is something from 100 years ago, or in some cases 200 or more years ago, where people gave babies baths in those big galvanized tubs, right? Those big containers, and you didn't have indoor plumbing. You couldn't just go run some hot water in the tub and put the babies in there. They had to heat the water on a stove of some sort, and then put water in the big galvanized tub, and then you put the kids in there, you put the babies in there, and you bathe them and everything, and then when they're done, you take the baby out, and you take the old dirty bath water and you throw it out, right? But what happens if you get distracted, you're not paying attention or whatever, you finish washing the baby, and then you pick up the tub and you throw out the baby with the bathwater? Okay, it's just an old saying that says you don't want to get rid of the good while you're trying to get rid of the bad. And what would happen is, with term limits, that's what we would be doing. We would be forcing really good, hardworking people out of office when we don't need to force them out of office. We want them to stay there. So, no, in my estimation, term limits is not a good idea. And besides, we already have a system in place for getting rid of crummy politicians. It's called the ballot box. Vote them out of office. It's not hard. We already have a means in place for that. Just vote them out of office. And if they keep getting reelected, well, somebody thinks they should be there. Maybe I don't, maybe you don't, but somebody does. That's why they keep getting reelected. But if we work hard enough and we present some good alternative candidates, maybe we can vote them out of office. That's the way the system is set up to work. Those are my thoughts for today on this idea of term limits. So I hope I said something here that was helpful to you or interesting in some way. I want to remind you again of one of the books I wrote, A Bunch of Really Good Reasons to Be a Republican. You can get it through Barnes & Noble online or Amazon online. You can get a physical copy, or you can get an electronic copy, an ebook. But it's a good overview, a historical overview of politics in America, and may help you figure out some of the stuff that we talk about here in our videos. Thank you for watching. I hope you'll watch more. Thanks.